it's this thing that's tied to all of our projects.
I would agree with that assumption as well, but I'd still like to see the numbers.
You want to know what he's permitted to raise his rent on an annual basis?
Yeah,
Okay.
and how long these tax credits exist for, and if it's a short amount of time, you know, do these guidelines that have been set
Well, I mean,
change?
the tax credits, I mean, those are, you know, tax credits are, you know, done up front. You know, the tax credits don't actually have like a shelf life for a long period of time. So the tax credits are sold to bring in, you know, the private money to fund the project. That happens, you know, on the front end, right? So it's not like a loan where you're kind of repaying it back over a period of time. You know, I'm actually glad you brought that up because that was the same with Bruce Levine's project. And so when people say, well, you've got tax credits from the state of New York, they think, oh, it's just, you know, our public money is funding this entire project. But the tax credits are sold, and they're sold to the private sector. So it actually brings in private money, and obviously the private developer or investor gets a benefit for doing it, which is what's attractive to the private money.
And I was just going to add that the pilot itself says that the project is defined as an affordable housing project. It gives a number of things, new roof spoilers, AC sleeves, etc. And then one of the events of default is the failure to maintain the project. So if they weren't going to use it for that affordable housing, the pilot would no longer exist. And I suspect that they sold it other than through the tax credits or the grants that pay a gigantic penalty as well. But at the end of 30-something years, it probably goes to market rate housing, new apartments.
Are they going to also manage it? I mean, given you said that they have a pretty long track record, they typically just build and then own them and hire a management company. I guess I'm curious to know if their track record with other projects is going to indicate the type of management that you're going to see.
Yeah, they manage their own properties, and so they have like in all these facilities an employee that works for them that's management on staff.
What are the police and crime rates in the other places that they manage? The biggest part we have with this one is literally the safety of the residents there. I have a lot of friends that live there. They don't feel safe because there's crack dealers and there's violent gang members living in those buildings. What are we going to do to make sure that our families are safe? Because I have kids that are afraid to leave their homes because the people on that property is a threat to them.
Right, so you're kind of reiterating what we talked about at the beginning, is that, you know, the track record of that property is not a good one.
Yes.
So as far as, you know, what are the crime rates or public safety issues and their other respective projects, I don't necessarily know what that is connected to their projects. I know what the condition of some of the projects that we talked about with them were before they were, how much they invested, how that helped transform the community.
The reason why I went with First Ward Action Council is because they have provenly reduced the crime rates in the community.
Right.
If we're just going to get in management, but the crime rates aren't going to go down, and there's no safety for the people we're bringing in there.
Well, part of it is just, you know, the screening process itself and the management that's on site, and that's, you know, when those two factors are not in check, you know, that's how a property begins to spiral out of control.
Well, right now they have the management gets a kickback every time a person signs a lease, and literally they're getting any person with a pulse into their, because they get money. They're not doing backgrounds or anything.
So I think that, you know, from the developer's standpoint, if they are, you know, going to invest or are responsible for $30 million, you can be sure that they're not going to risk going in default. That's like we've talked about with other initiatives, you know, through the city. They want to protect their investment, and the number one thing they can do to protect their investment is is to provide good, solid, you know, management. Part of that has to do with effectively dealing with tenant issues as they arise. Part of it has to do with investing in their parcel to make sure that there are not code and safety and commercial violations. Part of it is addressing, you know, some of the outside issues that we talked about with regards to safety and security, adding more lighting, putting fences up, restricting access, more for tenants so that, people can't just come and go and a list of things, after that. But if you're going to invest $30 million, you're going to make sure that you're going to do everything possible to protect that investment.
And part of those 30 million are also security upgrades, correct? Such as lighting and cameras.
Absolutely.
It's going to make it a campus, essentially. So, monitoring who's coming in, who's coming out. That's the police's number one concern right now, is that you have some common areas. People who may or may not be living at the facility are using it as a social gathering space and associate criminal activity.
I think
some of the list is new and upgraded exterior lighting, new fence and gate. And I'm just looking at the list of some of the improvements that they include in the agreement.
The other thing we can do too is, some of this is a little bit out of order only because we got the information from the IDA today. So we kind of passed it along to you as soon as we had gotten it. Most times we have the developer either call in or come in. And if you want, which I think would be a good idea, is at the next work session, because he's in Boston, I don't know if he's able to come up. At the very least, we can get him on like a call during the period of time so that you can ask him these questions directly. I don't know everything that you're talking about with regards to percent increases and stuff that might be in his business model. I know what the positives are certainly on our end, and what this project needs to move forward. But certainly you're going to have some questions that only a developer can answer. Certainly with regards to his track record, if you want to talk about the impact in the other cities that he's done projects in, those are all good things. I'm sure he'd be willing to do that. We just wanted to pass this along to you as soon as we got it. That's why we did this the way that we did it.
Yeah, if you could schedule that, that'd be awesome. I think this is, this is great, but there are existing questions that exist before I would vote on it. But I'm happy to sign this out tonight.
Can you furnish us with a list of other projects that they've worked on?
Sure. I mean, in fact, I'll give you we can give you a list, but I can also, on their website, they've got a lot of their projects and photos and things like that as well. The developer's name is Joe Eddy. His company is JE Properties, and they are in Boston, Massachusetts. But we can certainly provide that too.
Yeah, I mean, you've been talking about their track record. I'm just interested to see what you saw. And I think also Councilman Krantz would be able to get a sense for crime rates around the properties they do.
That's no problem. We're happy to do that.
And Conrad, your two main questions were
The percent increase on that.
the rents during the monitoring period, and then what is the monitoring period to ensure low income or affordable housing? Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Mayor, I got just a couple of questions. First of all, how many units in that country town do you know offhand? Was it 280?
Yeah, I was thinking 278 or 279, but it's approximately right there. I mean, we had it in the release, but I don't have the release in front of me.
Healy Park Apartments. They're now electric.
That's your second one?
Well, it's his third one.
That's
He's got room for it. Different trends.
I'm a growing boy.
If I could,
Such a hard time.
I'm not questioning.
I think that there may have been some subsidized housing there through Section 8.
Yeah,
Correct.
But my understanding now is that is really a market rate.
It's a market rate,
Yeah.
and they pay.
That's all I can say.
They pay full tax.
Yeah.
There's no pilot with that
Correct.
unit there, right?
Yeah, that expired.
All right, and the main reason I bring it up is the places you mentioned before that affordable housing, student housing, market rate housing, all of that was either non-existent at any point. I mean, and most of it was off the tax rolls. So by us giving them pilots, they were paying more than what those properties were bringing in, because they weren't bringing in any revenue at all, except even with the new and built student housing downtown, his original pilot was more than what all those properties combined that he tore down would pay. And what you're asking here now is to take a property that's paying a full tax bill and putting a pilot on it. So I think that's big difference in how I'm gonna do this. And,
253 units in 22 buildings.
so I have a hard time giving a pilot where we're taking a tax, building and lowering the tax on, even though they're gonna make the improvements. I think a 250 some unit housing project is a huge amount of money. And if it's worth a $30 million investment, I just have, I'm gonna have a hard time supporting it.
Sure, and I certainly understand what you're saying with regards to the numbers. Anytime a project has gotten a pilot, there's certainly been a massive investment. I think some of the things that we can't quantify are quality of life issues in the neighborhood, measuring the impact of the fact that this has been a major problem for the city of Binghamton. What the costs are for the police department responding there every day, dealing with crime, public safety issues, whether it's drug dealing, gang activity,